All right, all right. Welcome back to the Beyond Coaching Podcast. We've got my co-host Max Ada, and today we have Stephen Mason of York County Barbell. Stephen, thanks for being with us today, man.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Beard looks great.
Thanks.
Looks the same as last time. So keep doing what you're doing, man.
Yeah,
I need to know the secrets. You gotta tell Max. It looks a little scraggly sometimes.
that's true. That's true.
Stephen, one of the things that I think we should dive into right away is you built your gym, not just like, I opened a gym. No, you literally physically built your gym in your backyard.
I did.
Let's start around there, man. Why, how? Tell me about that.
Landlords need him for this one trick.
And honestly, I'm having more people ask me how I did it. So this is kind of why I wanted to come on here. I was in a typical situation working at a CrossFit gym, and the CrossFit gym had like a 4/9 model of, hey, you get this member, you get 4/9 payment of this client. And we started accumulating 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, and they didn't like that we were accumulating a lot of their members. And there wasn't like a do CrossFit and barbell, it was do CrossFit or barbell, or do both, whatever. So there was kind of this moment of like, I don't know if this is working, and if it is going to continue to work, you need to start making less. And I didn't want that. Obviously, I didn't want my paycheck to get affected. So there was a moment where the owner actually offered to sell me his side of the business, and he was going to step away, and kept leading me on for about a month, and then decided like the amount that he was going to offer went up by like $200,000. They said, nice. There's no way, I got to walk away from this. And at the time I was selling a house, and I ended up flipping that house and that revenue into a pole barn kit. And nice. There aren't many in Maine because it's very cold, and it's not typical to see something like that. It's more of like a Midwest thing. But I was told by the contractor that was building my house that that would be a like reasonably priced option. So I got that. I never built a building in my life, but it was kind of like adult Legos. Like they give you the plans, they give you everything step by step. You just had to like overcome some fears of like getting on a ladder and being on a roof. So yeah, I did it. I accumulated a lot of equipment and put it in a storage unit for about 6 months as I built it. And a couple of members joined me from that gym, but yeah, it's been 3.5 years since.
Nice. That's crazy.
That's wild.
Is it insulated?
Yeah. It's insulated. We have like a wool in the walls. We have blown in like pink fluffy stuff in the ceiling. Yeah.
Damn, that's impressive.
So yeah, the electricity bill for the mini splits is a lot in this the winter though.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Okay.
Is that your only overhead though?
That and electricity. That's it. Well, Wi-Fi, I guess, but that's part of the house.
Yeah. Wow.
How have the intricacies been with building a gym business that's literally also next to your personal property?
There aren't any. People respect my family and what we're doing here. There have been a couple of people that haven't stuck around, not for any like personal reasons, but more because they just weren't a good fit. Our community is self-selecting in that way, where like a lot of good people come in and they set the tone for like what's to be expected. And then if you don't fit, you don't fit.
Nice.
That's really cool, man. When it comes to York County Barbell, like how have you built it in a way that's sustainable? Like what do you think, what makes York County Barbell special?
Kind of like that DIY ethos of like, just got to figure it out. If I don't know something, I'm going to ask my mentor, Dave Ethier, Providence Barbell Club. I was in Providence, and then my wife and I moved up to the Seacoast area, New Hampshire, Maine. And there wasn't a barbell club up here. And he's been kind of like that resource of like, I want to build something. What would you do? And like, anytime I run into a situation of like, I've never heard of this before. How do I deal with this? Like someone having like a BO problem in the gym. I know we talked about that, Zach. Like, what do I do? And his idea was like, stick a deodorant, just hand it to him. I was like, oh, I don't think I could do that. But, like things like that where it's like just off the wall,
Yeah. It's so funny that like, okay, people don't think about that. Owning a gym,
Dude.
one of the problems could be someone smells bad. And so like Max, what I told Steven is one of the things I've done with that is first I'll attack it in one way where I'll pretend to send a mass email, but I'll just send it to one person. Hey guys, it's summertime. I know it's hot. Just make sure that we're blah, 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 blah. And then if that doesn't work, then it's the personal follow-up. And I had someone just ghosted us and quit because of it one time. And I felt horrible, but
yeah.
What do you do, man?
You gotta do the right thing by everyone.
Yeah.
We had these 2 members that came in and they were pretty like, hippie, like they had like, wool socks when they were lifting and all their clothes were like handmade. And they lifted and they were in the gym, and our space back in the old CrossFit, we were like in the back room, and then there was a wall with these 2 cutouts, like windows. And someone came from the other side of the building one day and came over and they're like, what smells so bad over here? And it was like the 2 of them were so bad. So my plan, we have a thing where it's like, you got to get there's one asshole in the gym and you're just like, it's your job. You got to just kamikaze this. Like the first thing you have to say to them is, hey, you guys don't smell very good. You need to bring some deodorant, and like, just let it be that. And if it's another member, it's whatever. And like, and if it works, it works. If not, like, it's saving everybody, right?
Yeah, the issue was like this person left a gym because of something like that. So I was trying to deal with it as delicately as possible. And it ended up blowing up in my face. But at least you got to try or do something.
And now your gym smells good.
Yeah, it does.
True.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah, it's the things that people don't realize, like when it comes to your, with gym ownership, building a community of people. Like I even remember when I started my gym, really small space. I was running space from a larger gym, and I noticed that like, God, the other gym was so cliquey, and there was relationships happening, and drama. And I remember thinking like, this never happens to me. I had a really small team at the time, and then years later, I'm like, coaches date people date people. There's blow ups, people break up, they both leave, and I'm like, really? Like it's like high school,
Yeah,
that's really big in CrossFit. My experience anyway, just like how not incestuous, but like very cliquey.
Yeah. One of the things that you sound like you've been building is somewhat of like a senior program, like a lot of retirees coming in. How have you tackled that market, and what are you doing with that now?
So our community, Berwick, Maine, is where I live, where the gym is. We have youth athletes, and we're starting to build a program around that as well. But we have a senior population that is kind of aging up and retiring. And my neighbor is actually one of them. She has something called myasthenia gravis. She stopped me one day and she said, "You do some strength stuff, right?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, well, my doctor said I should start doing this, or I should just get a wheelchair and just, sit in that for the rest of my life." I said, "Okay, well, we could definitely help you." And myasthenia gravis, it can attack your upper body, your lower body, or both. And it essentially makes you look like you're either having a stroke or passing out.
Wow.
And her symptoms, ever since starting with us, have greatly diminished. She has them once in a while. And the main reason why she didn't want to be in a wheelchair, she has this massive garden. She just showed me her haul of like tons of carrots and whatever. She wants to keep doing that for the rest of her life. And this is the thing that's going to keep her going. And the same thing for a lot of other members that are like 60 plus. Like I have this woman that owns her own salon, Cindy, and she just trap bar deadlift 74 kilos. And she was at like an Orange Theory before that and had never touched weight like that. So to like see people that are 60 plus still getting stronger, it's incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We have a client. His name's Ed. He's 82.
Wow.
Started working with us 3 years ago. And I was here the other day and he was doing triple jumps outside. And I was like, whoa. And when he signed up, I was actually talking to him yesterday because like I tell my team, I'm like, this is the only reason Ed leaves the house. And Ed's not going to listen to this, so I can talk, I can say whatever. Right. But I don't think he has the internet. But this is the reason he leaves the house. So he'll sit, he'll talk, like we make eye contact. I know I'm locked in for a 30-minute, he shows me his garden actually and tells me about what he's doing this weekend. And I love it. I love people who are older. I love listening to them and learning from their stories. But he has gotten more mobile. he's gotten more athletic in this phase of life, and it blows my mind. And we'll talk. He was a surgeon his whole life, so he's seen a lot of stuff. And I asked him yesterday, I was like, with your friends, and when they're slowing down, do you see that they slow down because they stopped moving, and then that just accelerates everything? And is it fear based? And he's like, absolutely. Like, so much of it is fear based. They're afraid to try something like this and get hurt. And so I guess my question for you is, how have you gone about communicating, debunking some of those myths and fears? And I think that social media and education is like coming out more and more. Studies are coming out that like people are learning this is a good thing later in life. We've known that for years. How have you debunked some of those things for people that are fearful?
So initially we start with like a super basic program that's just like, let's see what an air squat looks like. Let's see what a press looks like. Let's see if you can hinge or do a trap bar deadlift, or do a deadlift with dumbbells. If you can do that, then we graduate you to the next program. If you can't, then you're going to stay there and then start to evolve from there. A lot of the issues that I run into are people feeling pain, and I use air quotes for pain, because they don't know what pain or like an injury or tightness or fatigue actually looks like, because they are going from like a couch to doing some sort of physical exercise. And so a lot of times it's like, well, your quad's really tight and that's showing up at your knee. Well, let's roll out. Well, no, my doctor said, well, let's try to roll out first. And then if it doesn't get better, or we try some other manipulation, then go to the doctor, get the MRI, so then you can be safe. But they're probably going to say that you need surgery. And I've personally been there where I went for my shoulder, and I've never competed before in my life. I've just loved Olympic weightlifting so much that like I knew that was like my direction. But I have never been able to successfully go 6 months without some sort of shoulder pain. I went to go see one PT after being told that I was going to have to go under the knife. And he goes, no, I don't think you need that. Let's take a look at everything else. And it was my neck. So to understand that there's more of an underlying cause has helped me deliver that to other people, and to give them hope when like doctors are super eager to just open you up. So giving them that hope, I think, is super special, and that's something that I'm grateful to be able to offer.
Definitely.
Nice.
Yeah, we had Dr. Quinn Hennick on, and we talked about this a ton with me and Max. And like one of the things that happens is someone feels pain, they stop moving, and then they drift. I forget the phrase he used for it, but it was something drift like into less fitness, and therefore you feel better, but then you try to get back and then you feel worse. And so there's there's a balancing act of enough stimulus to feel decent, but like stay under the pain threshold of 2 or 3. And the question is, are you cool with being under 2 at 2 to 3 forever? Or, can we work backwards so that we get back to a 1 or a 0? And that's what's hard is surgeons want a surgeon. They want to, that they get paid to do surgery. Yes. Lawyers want a lawyer. Like we have to remember, people don't realize that like these people don't always have just your genuine best interest in mind, but theirs. And their solution is their solution. Like, so I might think that powerlifting is the right vehicle for fitness, and a CrossFit coach is going to think CrossFit is. It doesn't mean we're wrong. It's just the way in which we do things. So 100%. But I found that is a hard conversation to have with people who aren't former athletes, that haven't dealt with pain in real injury, real injury, or things like that. So that's an interesting note.
Yeah. Do you find that most of your clientele are master's age and up? Like, is that your ideal person?
So when we started, we had, it's kind of like an even split. And then as we've progressed over 3.5 years, we've definitely accumulated more masters athletes. Like we're going to Masters World in Vegas. Last year we had, what was it? 4 athletes in Finland. This year we have 2 just because people didn't want to go to Vegas. I don't blame them. And I think like on the weightlifting side, we definitely have more masters athletes. We are starting to see that in this area, there is interest with kids. Like we have a kids program that's exploding. We just did a summer pilot program. I don't coach it. We have someone else that does that. And they had, what was it, 17 kids. We went from one class with initially, like, I thought 3 kids were going to sign up, and then 3 kids turned into 7, turned into, 12, and then 17. But it
That's
was
good.
really just word of mouth with like one mom that was like, hey, lacrosse team, do you want to do this? And everyone just signed up for it. And now we're going into the school year and there's still more interest. So we're just going to do a year-round program.
Nice.
Yeah.
Definitely. One of the things that you talked about was being community first. Like that's your mindset around building business. Tell me more about that.
So I try to look at the business. So let me go back. I've come from being management and coach at other gyms. I've seen how people have run their business, whether it be like being cliquey with certain staff members, or different members in the gym where you don't really know where those lines are. And to be very clear about like what I expect, I want to make sure that, and this is off on a side tangent, but um, when I initially created this, I wanted to make sure that like I am looking at this from more of a holistic view, from like how do I want to be treated, how do I want to treat everyone else, and like how do I want them to interact with each other too. So like the culture side of things is very important here. But when it comes to being community centered, like I want to make sure that the equipment that we buy is going to be used by most people, not by one person.
Right.
A gym that I came from, things were being bought for one person. And then it can feel like there's like an uneven power dynamic at play of like
Right.
they have preference, like, hey, they're going to be able to select music, this person can't,
Mm.
stuff like that. Yeah, I just want it to be fair. I don't want to look at the dollars and cents of it every day. I want to make sure that people are happy. And I guess you could do both, but I guide my business more on like word of mouth than ad sales or any of that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure that that is what propels us. Like I've done the Facebook marketing, I've done all that stuff, and like none of it really pans out for us. And I think it's where we are.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like you mentioned sort of balancing sort of that community aspect of making sure that everyone's sort of seen and heard.
Yeah,
We had an issue where we have a record board, with all the
yeah,
weight classes, and
same.
one of our masters athletes who does really well, she was like, you should have a masters record board. Why don't you have a masters record board? And I was like, oh. And then you get in the nitty gritty of federations, because in powerlifting there's lots of federations. So
Yeah,
then we get into, do deadlift bars count towards the record
Yeah.
bar or the record board, or
yeah,
do we care? And I had to have a conversation with her on the master side. I was like, if I do masters, then does that mean I have to do teen 1, teen 2, teen 3, junior? And then is my wall just record boards?
yeah.
It's hard to balance those things, and that was a tough conversation, and I don't think she necessarily still agrees with my approach, but it's like you try to appease the majority, the 80%, and if people feel lost in the shuffle, I try to have the conversation as much as I can, but there's only so much we can do from our end as well.
You can go by Sinclair.
Yeah, there you go.
They
That's
don't
true.
need age.
That's
You
true.
need age adjusted as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
whatever,
It is.
not
yeah.
everyone's going to be happy. And like I've had members like the issue with the body odor. Like when
Yeah.
I said things blew up on me, when I approached it in a very kind way, because again, I want this to be community centered. I got a email through our website from this person's partner, and they exploded on me. But they weren't there on the phone call when I was trying to be kind, and
Yeah.
instead they just viewed it as like an attack, and that's never what I want. Like I never want someone to feel like they're left out or singled out or any of that stuff. So it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. It's also like you have to, as a gym owner, a coach, a team, like all these things, you kind of have to pick what your battles are.
Mhm.
Where it's like you kind of got to decide, right? Like, what is it that we do here? What are we all about? And how do we make this like the focus, stay on that? I've had people in a gym before where they would say things like literally the words out of their mouth were, I saw that you posted on your Instagram, this person 12 times and you only posted me 7. And I'm not counting, but I just all I saw.
Right.
And it's like I can't, like, you just say, like, you know what, like, that's the reality. Like, that person's breaking world records and I post that because it's a business, and like
Mm-hmm.
Right.
that's just how it is. And like if you think that like your membership entitles you to have like a certain amount of posting, it's like you have to put yourself in my perspective and understand like that's just not what I'm not doing this for you to have some recognition on the internet. Like that should be something you get personally. I use
Right.
it as a marketing tool. Like we have to get
Right.
people in the gym so it's sustainable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough via social media, or anything that you put out there. Like it can be construed in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Um, and like I come from like kind of a media background. Like I was a videographer, photographer before this, and just to like see what people are looking at and like how they're perceiving it is kind of in the back of my head at all times. It's
Yeah.
tough though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a balancing act. We've had the same thing where we do like good luck posts for meets and then meet breakdowns. And the question is, if someone did pretty poorly at a meet, do we really want to break that down?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then does it make them feel worse if we don't? And like
Right.
these are the conversations that we have that I don't think people are realizing that we're having these internal battles and
Yeah.
conversations.
Oh
We
yeah.
we care enough to talk about it with team. But there's never, you do one thing and you're going to piss off the other subset of people that are doing the other thing. And so
Yeah.
what I tell people is like, we're just doing our best. Like
Right.
Yeah.
just trying our
That's all
best.
we can
We
do.
care. Yeah, exactly. One of the things that you switched to, we talked a little bit about your business model, and I know you operate with 6, 12, and 18-month agreements. And when you switch, you actually lost some short-term people. What made you want to make that switch? And how has that been working out for you, especially for those listening that are still charging that month to month, or they don't know what's coming in next month because of that, et cetera.
Yeah. So I was doing the month to month, and it was like 35 members, which for our small space is a lot. And I initially opened up the gym because I didn't want a Planet Fitness model. We started at like 155, which I thought was a premium, right?
Mhm.
And when I looked at it, I was like, I think I could use some help with this whole business thing. I'm not a business person. I like coaching, the typical entrepreneur thing. Um, and I saw Sarah Menta. She was on, I think it was Philosophical with Josh, or
Yep.
I think it was Josh, and she was talking about her mentorship program. So it was, I think, right after that I had reached out to her, and we started. I think we did like 4 calls together, and one of those was like, "Why are you working so much? And do you think you could maybe charge a little bit more?" And I didn't really think about it that way. And I was working a lot. Like I was doing, it was like eight, no, it was 6 to like 12 o'clock, and no one would be in. I'm like, I have like 5 people in a span of 6 hours. What am I doing? And then the same thing on the back end. It was like 6 to 12, and then I don't know, 4, maybe even like 3 to 8. So like I was working a lot. And I had one day off a week, Sundays. So she goes, all right, well, can you look at maybe days that you can take out, or do you think you'd be okay with increasing the rates? And at first, I increased the rates by $5. So it was, instead of 155, 160.
One
She goes,
cup of
okay,
coffee.
Yeah.
yeah. And she goes, okay, that's a good step. Do you think you could do more? And I started breaking it down. I was like, you know what? I do go to competitions. I help people with their goals, and I feel like I'm a better fit than most people in this area. So yeah, I think I can charge more. And then I went from 6 days of work down to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Saturday's not a full day. So like just valuing the amount of work that I'm putting in and being able to charge more because I feel like I am worth more, it made more sense. So the way that I broke it down, just like a typical gym, instead of the like 1, 6, and 12, I did 6, 12, and 18, because the way that she put it, the way that SoCal does it, was weightlifting, you're not going to get better in a month. Like that's kind of like scraping the surface. If you want to get better, you're going to commit. So 6 months was that minimum commitment rate. and then 12, and then 18. And with 18, you get the best rate. You're also the most committed.
Yeah, I like to tell people, like, so I started doing contracts back in 2019, and I was so nervous. Like, I remember we started with new people coming in the door, so I didn't launch it to everyone. I just knew people. I wanted people to say yes to the pricing because I
Yeah.
upped pricing. The month to month price became the 12-month rate, so it was a big jump. And then 6 months was more, and 3 months was more. And what I realized, in the way we've always, quote unquote, sold it, is fitness, like powerlifting, whatever it is, it's not a month to month endeavor. I'm doing you a disservice by saying, yeah, month to month, like cancel, no contract. I always see gyms, coaches, whatever, post, here's the plan, no contracts, no initiation, all this stuff. And like using that as a sales point, I'm like, you're doing that person a disservice by not forcing them to commit to their goals. And so I'm the same way. We implement agreement stuff. Minimum should be 3 or even 6. And that should be, and then we should attach agreement length with goal of client. So if a client comes into my gym and they want to compete at a higher level and they want to push, I'm going to go, that's a 12-month endeavor. At month 6, we're going to do your first meet. We're going to hit these goals. Then we're going to do this training cycle and hit these goals. And that's, I think, the mistake a lot of coaches are making, is attach agreement length with goal and have lengths that align with the vehicle of fitness that you're doing and pursuing.
Right. Yeah,
That's
I think it's
smart. Yeah.
hard for most people to commit. And that's why like a Planet Fitness model is so much more appealing, is like there is no commitment. Like you're spending $10 a month. But then there's no one there to help you. You don't really know what you're doing, especially like, well, most people don't know what they're doing when they go to a facility like that. They're just looking for a fitness experience, which if that's your vehicle to get fit, that's great, But if you want to stick with something, I think more commitment is better.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Do you find that that a lot of that stuff, like the month to month and the pricing and all this, like this idea of charging more, is more of an emotional thing you're concerned with, and then in reality, when you implement it, it isn't that big a deal?
It's a good question. So initially, I worked for Bose, the speaker company, for 8 years of my life right out of college. And I learned in that experience, I worked tech support and customer service. And I learned back then not to think with my own wallet.
Right.
So if I'm offering a service option for like these pair of headphones, if I'm thinking with my own wallet, I'm going to say, well, unfortunately, and it immediately changes the tone of how someone's going to perceive what that service option is. Or you could say, well, I understand, but we do have this great option for you. And just like that slight switch, and you could say it in many different ways, but like having a more positive twist to it makes people feel a different way. And in the beginning, when I opened this, the gym, it felt really hard to have those conversations about money, but it's gotten better, like it's like anything else, like squatting your 1 rep max eventually is not going to be your 1 rep max anymore, and it's going to get easier. So it's just one of those skills that you have to practice.
I think there's a weirdness in I have experience in both, so powerlifting and weightlifting.
Yep.
There's a definite difference between the two as far as pricing goes. And in weightlifting, I feel like there's a bit of a old curmudgeon-y, like, we don't want any money in the sport at all, and get it out of here. And if you're trying to make money on somebody, you're an awful human being. We used to, I remember the first meet we ran in weightlifting in the Bay Area that we charged $55 for.
Wow.
We had
That's
friends of mine, people come in and be like, it used to be $10. And now a meet in the Bay Area is, 85 to 100. But contrast that with powerlifting. You'll have a powerlifting meet that starts at $150 and fills up in one day.
And $35 to add a different class on. Too.
35 per different category.
Wow.
So if you do like, bench only or masters. And on top of this, you go to the national level, and there are very few coaches in the US in weightlifting, I say, that are charging people to coach them at meets, right? They just kind of accept that that's part of it. And it's like, okay, we're going to nationals. And if you bring 2 people, 3 people to nationals, which I think would be a typical amount, you might end up losing money on those 3 clients for the whole year, because their cost to travel, all of this, the hours you put in, the lost money and wages because you can't work on a Saturday and do your personal training session or whatever it is. And those few people are paying you $175 to $200 a month. Like, your total profit on those clients when you factor everything in might be nothing.
Right.
In powerlifting, it is not even no one bats an eye at saying, hey, it's $150, $200 to handle you to meet.
Right.
And that's
Plus
just like
travel costs
plus
potentially.
travel. Yeah. I have people that are going to fly me to Las Vegas, pay me and cover all the expenses to handle them at a competition in powerlifting. Totally different world than weightlifting. And I think it's just like, it's not different people.
Right.
They're all the same, age group and brackets, just like the expectation, the standard is set. And I think, rightfully so, in powerlifting, somehow it happened that was the thing. In weightlifting, it's like this old school thought of like, don't do this, don't do that. So I think it's like I'm curious to ask, like, do you feel like there's a lot of that like trepidation because it's like, not only are you a little bit like, okay, what is it worth? But also the expectation that other people will see it as like, well, how can you charge that much? Why are you doing this? Like, remote coaching and weightlifting, sometimes people charge as little as like $60 a month. And it's like, it's just like, you can't justify how that works. Like the time put in wouldn't add up to the money. The quality of the product can't be there. You know what I mean? So like,
Right.
it's a question. Like, do you feel like there's pressure outside to control pricing more?
So again, I have some people that I communicate with, coaches, non-coaches, that I trust their opinion, and I'll ping ideas off of them. And
Yeah.
one of them is kind of what you talked about, of like when you travel and you're losing money by doing that. I had to have a sit down with the people that do compete to have that discussion of like, I love traveling. I want to help you and I want to get you to the level that you want to get to. And like we have some
Mhm.
masters world champions because I went to Finland, not
Yeah.
because I went, but they had that experience. And the agreement that I struck with them was like, I don't want a percent of my travel covered. I would just like room and board. Like I just want to be able
Mm.
to sleep somewhere and know
Yeah.
that that's covered. I'll pay for my plane flight. I'll pay for whatever travel arrangements, but I just need a place to stay. And
Yeah.
luckily they've agreed to that. And I feel like that's something that more coaches should ask for, because you are taking time away from your family, from
Yeah.
your life, from the other people that you're coaching. Um, you are expected to do something above and beyond. So there should be some sort of compensation for that. And other coaches, I feel when I have that conversation, they're like, yeah, I want to have that conversation with them. We should, just
Yeah.
like with powerlifting, like if powerlifting has all that money and all the resources, it
Yeah.
seems like it's available. They just don't know that that should be an expectation.
So one of the things that we do, and I think I've talked to Max about this, is like literally in our membership agreements,
Mm-hmm.
we say the rate at which we will charge for meet day handling based on distance. It's
Yep.
in the agreement.
Yeah.
It's discussed at sign up. It's an expectation that's set. It's not this weird, like, okay, so I know you're going to nationals. It's in Vegas. What do you think is fair? And like this weird back and forth. It's like, they know that it's a 150 for the day, plus coach can decide if it makes sense financially to go
Right.
still. And
That's smart.
there might be some more there might then be a conversation of, hey, we need a couple more things covered for this to economically make sense for a coach to go, especially if I have team that they're not owners of the business, like this is on their own time
Right.
for us. But yeah. And then the other thing too, it's like so I think with powerlifting in particular, Max, to your point, I think that powerlifting has been monetized more quickly.
Yeah.
It's obviously developed a lot more quickly in the last decade. It's really blown up. I mean, maybe last decade and a half, really. And I think it's been monetized more quickly because I think, one, the barrier to entry of lifters and coaches is lower. So anyone can be a powerlifting
Yes.
coach. You could choose to be one tomorrow, just whatever.
Just announce it.
And two, you can choose to call yourself a power lifter if you do the squat, bench, and press and deadlift in training. Like if you go to a gym and you do those lifts, you might call yourself a power lifter. And so I think that because there's just more volume and then coaches have assimilated more quickly to charging for these things, it's more widely accepted. Whereas with weightlifting, I think it's like good old boys club, a little bit more of like, oh, it's always been done this way. So then therefore you're wrong if you're doing it any other way. And you're sort of like kicked out of the group. And then the other thing too, to your point about pricing, like I think a lot of times coaches project their own pricing behaviors and insecurities on their pricing and sales. So like, I always look at it this way. You might make the same amount of money as someone else, and that person decides to buy a Porsche Macan. And you're like, I know they make the same amount of money as me. Like, why would they make that decision? But they just love cars, and that's their shtick. And you love travel, and you like to travel a lot. People value things differently. I told my dad one time the prices that we charge here, and he's like, oh my God, like I paid $10 a month at 24-hour fitness. How does anyone ever, And I'm like, you're in a different category, my friend. You're not our target client avatar. Let me tell you. So I think what I've found with price insecurity is always testing it. Just make up a price, make up a raised price. Next person comes in, you throw it out there, you get some yeses, you build confidence, and then you build process and system later.
Yeah, honestly, when we were increasing rates this past year, I didn't introduce it to the members that were already in because that was going to happen when they signed their new contract if they stayed on. So it was my responsibility to, when that first new client walked in the door, that was the first one where it was like, geez, I haven't had that conversation. What are they going to do? And like, of course, like they don't know any different. So that's what it is,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Stephen, one of the things I like to ask, and I know we talked about this a little bit on a previous call. What's something you wish someone had told you or something you knew before starting a gym?
You kind of get it in your head that, and like Dozer just posted this the other day. I'm sure you saw it, Max, of like, do you think that you have to be a competitor to coach? Like that insecurity. And I briefly talked about it. Like I've never competed before. So that was an insecurity coming into this of like, am I well equipped to help people? I don't know. And it's kind of like the Bill Belichick model of like, you don't really have to do it to be able to do it sort of thing. So being assured that like you don't necessarily need that to still be like, I don't know, I would consider myself relatively successful. Bringing someone to USAW Nationals as a masters athlete is pretty cool. And then having 2 masters world champions is pretty decent. So to like be able to provide assistance in a way that like maybe a high level competitor might not be able to, as far as like being able to empathize with maybe someone dealing with pain and maybe saying, hey, you're dealing with pain. I have one athlete dealing with that right now. Like, hey, we're not going to push right now because I know that like that's not going to get you to where you need to be, versus someone that's just like, let's run through the brick wall right now. Maybe that's not what they need, So I think that going in would have been helpful. And some like just general know-how on how to run a business. I think that would have been useful too. I've run different like photography businesses, but like it's still not the same as like a brick and mortar,
Yeah.
I have a really good point to your first point that I heard just the other day that really hit it home. I think this is a common argument used to just put people down. This idea that people will talk about like, if you, not to rag on Dylan, but like they do this a lot. The like, whatever your total is, it's nullifying your argument because you're weak.
Yeah.
Or like you have to have done the sport to coach it. And the best argument I've ever seen for this was the other day. I saw an interview with Mark Zuckerberg, and someone asked him the question, how much do you put on, he's talking about hiring people. How much weight do you put on experience in hiring? And he said, well, kind of basically, because I made Facebook at 19, 20 years old, I can't ascribe much value to experience because I had zero.
Right.
And nobody has any experience building Facebook at the time.
Exactly.
And he's like, I think the real thing is like, it's irrelevant what somebody's accomplishments are, the height of their accomplishments. It's so much more about aptitude. Right. And so like the idea, like it's what you do when you want to keep people, like it's like called gatekeeping. You want to keep people to feel like you're not strong. You can't have an opinion. You haven't coached. You don't deserve to coach me. And the reality is like, none of that matters. Aptitude is all that matters. And so if you're a young coach, to your point, like, I think that's such a hard thing to get over. Cause like you have to sit there and you're thinking like, am I good enough to do this? And the
And then
answer
you're
is like,
dealing with
yeah,
that insecurity of like,
yeah,
shit, am I doing the right thing? And you second guess yourself a lot.
right. And it probably keeps a lot of people from trying. The other side, the flip side of this is that people will just announce that they are the thing without any actual thing. So you have to build the experience, like just prove that you can, and then it's irrelevant what you've done because you have actual proof, right?
Right. You got to bully people a little bit, not a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you want, it's like you also just start it, just try, right? Research
Right.
it, just try and see where you get. You might find you're incredibly good at it and you had no idea.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Well, hey, we really appreciate your time today, man. I think this is a really good one. I think people who want to start a gym, maybe even build their gym, hopefully they
Yeah.
can reach out to you if they're
Yeah.
if they want to hand make their gym.
Where to get that pole barn kit?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thanks for being on. We're excited for this one, so I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Bye, guys.